Gandhi in South Africa, the birth of a Mahatma. It's been 3/4 of a century since Gandhi left us. Yet today we find ourselves drowning in a sea of misinformation about him. Raw, unfiltered lies spread across social media platforms. And this generation hasn't taken the time to actually read about Gandhi. Instead, they receive their education from what we mockingly call WhatsApp University. The tragedy is that while many people genuinely know about Gandhi and have studied him deeply, they've never been given a platform to share that knowledge. Meanwhile, the very organizations that bear Gandhi's name have largely failed in their mission to authentically communicate his message and story. This failure has created a vacuum, filled quickly by those with agendas and half-truths. Where do we truly begin? Not with the childhood morality plays we all heard in school. Not with the familiar, sanitized tales of truth-telling and non-violence that have been repeated until they lost their power. We needed to start where Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi actually died, and where Mahatma Gandhi was truly born. That transformative place was South Africa, and understanding why and how he went there is crucial to understanding the man who would change the world. Picture a 22-year-old man, freshly educated in London as a barrister, carrying with him the philosophical influences of Jain tradition from his Gujarat upbringing. Principles of ahimsa, discipline, simple living and vegetarianism were already embedded in his character from childhood. His father had been a Diwan, though the family was far from wealthy. In fact, they had taken loans to send young Mohandas to London for his legal education. Even in London, he managed to maintain his principles, avoiding wine and meat despite the social pressures. These stories are well documented in his own autobiography, The Story of My Experiments with Truth. But here's what often gets glossed over. When this qualified barrister returned to India and tried to practice law in Mumbai and Porbandar, he was spectacularly unsuccessful. Even Gandhi himself admitted it. He was essentially unemployed, unable to make a living as a lawyer in his own country. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. A prominent Gujarati merchant named Tyabji Seth had a first cousin in South Africa, involved in a complex business dispute. The case was worth £35,000, an astronomical sum that would translate to hundreds of crores of rupees in today's currency. The dispute involved documents in Gujarati, and they needed a lawyer who could read and understand that language. This seemingly mundane requirement became the catalyst for one of history's most significant journeys. Gandhi, unemployed and searching for purpose, accepted the assignment. He was 22, maybe 23 years old. Now pause for a moment and consider. What were you doing at 22? Most of us were still in college, figuring out our careers, navigating relationships, perhaps hanging around Majestic bus stand with friends. This young man was about to embark on a journey that would fundamentally reshape not just his own life, but the destiny of millions. To understand the significance of Gandhi's arrival in South Africa, we must first understand the context of that place and time. The 1890s saw South Africa divided into 4 distinct provinces: Natal, Transvaal, Orange Free State, and Cape Colony. 2 of these provinces were controlled by the British, and 2 by the Portuguese. But here's the profound tragedy that most people miss. These were 2 European colonial powers fighting wars on African soil. The Boer War wasn't fought by South Africans. It was a conflict between Portuguese and British interests, played out on land that belonged to neither. The actual indigenous people of South Africa, the tribal communities who had lived there for centuries, were rendered invisible in their own land. They had no say in governance, no peace in their lives, Their resources were exploited, and they were caught between foreign powers battling for dominance. This wasn't just colonization. It was the complete erasure of a people's sovereignty in their own homeland. Within this oppressive structure existed a significant Indian population of approximately 30,000 people. Understanding who these Indians were and why they were there is crucial to understanding Gandhi's mission. They fell into two distinct categories, each with their own story of displacement and survival. The first category consisted of contract laborers, primarily from Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. These were hard-working people, often from agricultural backgrounds, brought to South Africa on 4 to 5 year labor contracts. The British and Portuguese colonizers needed workers who would toil in harsh conditions for minimal pay, and they found that workforce in impoverished regions of India. Many of these laborers, upon completing their contracts, chose to stay. Through sheer entrepreneurial spirit and relentless hard work, they established small businesses, trading goods with remote tribal communities. Their success was a testament to their resilience and business acumen, traits that made Tamil and Telugu merchants renowned throughout the region. The second category of Indians in South Africa was dramatically different. These were wealthy Gujarati merchants, Parsis, Jains, and Muslims who had established themselves through trade connections. These weren't laborers, they were sophisticated businessmen, so successful that they employed 2 or 3 British lawyers as their assistants. The wealth some of these merchants possessed was staggering. Yet here lies one of history's cruelest ironies. No matter how wealthy an Indian was inside his office, no matter how many Europeans he employed, the moment he stepped outside into public space, he was just another coolie. That word, coolie, became the defining label for every single Indian, regardless of their actual profession, education, or wealth. A skilled mechanic was a coolie mechanic. A clerk was a coolie clerk. A wealthy businessman who paid British lawyers' salaries was still, fundamentally, just a coolie. This racial hierarchy was disturbingly similar to the caste system that plagued India itself. Just as in India, where someone would be identified first by caste, Hindu Lingayat, Hindu Brahmin, Hindu Kuruba, before their religion was even considered. In South Africa, race became the primary identifier that trumped everything else. This system of oppression wasn't accidental. It was carefully constructed and rigorously maintained through apartheid laws that were surgical in their cruelty. The apartheid system created different legal frameworks for different groups. One set of laws governed the indigenous tribal peoples. Another set governed Indians brought from Asia. And of course, Europeans had their own privileged legal status. The voting rights disparity tells the story most clearly. Out of 30,000 Indians living in South Africa, only 3,000 had voting rights. Meanwhile, out of 32,000 Europeans, every single one could vote. This growing Indian voter base, small as it was, began to be perceived as a threat by the European population. The British colonizers, having successfully exploited Indian labor to build economic prosperity, now feared the political implications of that success. When some Indians began acquiring property and establishing stable businesses after their contracts ended, the insecurity among the British intensified. This fear would eventually manifest in increasingly restrictive laws designed to keep Indians in their place. What's most striking about this situation is that despite such comprehensive oppression, despite the wealth accumulated by some Indians, despite their numbers, not a single Indian had mounted any significant protest.